She looked me in the eye across the breakfast table and said it without flinching. The greatest gift you could give me for my birthday would be if you just died. The coffee I was holding stopped halfway to my lips. Steam curled between us like a ghost neither of us wanted to acknowledge. My granddaughter Eliza, 23 years old. The girl I raised when her mother walked out and her father couldn't be bothered to come home before midnight. The same girl who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms and whisper that Grandpa made her feel safe. Now she wanted me dead. I set the cup down slowly, the ceramic meeting the wood with a click that sounded louder than it should have. Her eyes didn't waver. Cold. Practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this moment in front of a mirror until the cruelty came out smooth. Before I dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe because what comes next will make you question everything you thought you knew about family. I didn't ask her why. I already knew. 3 days earlier, I'd overheard her on the phone in the hallway outside my bedroom. She thought I was asleep. People always think old men sleep more than we do. Once he's gone, the house is mine, she'd said, voice bright with the kind of excitement you'd expect from someone talking about a vacation, not a funeral. I already talked to a realtor. The market's insane right now. We could get $800,000 easy. Maybe more if we stage it right. The person on the other end must have asked about me because she laughed. Actually laughed. He's 74. How much longer can he really hold on? And honestly, Marcus, he's becoming a burden. I'm tired of pretending I care. Marcus, her boyfriend of 5 months, a slick-haired personal trainer who showed up to family dinners in Gucci slides and called me big guy like we were old pals. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling my heart beat against my ribs like it was trying to escape the betrayal my ears had just absorbed. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair by the window and watched the moon drag itself across the sky. I thought about the years after Eliza's mother left, how I'd learned to braid hair from YouTube videos because a 6-year-old girl shouldn't go to school looking like nobody loved her, how I'd sat through every dance recital, every parent-teacher conference, every hospital visit when she had pneumonia at age 9 and I didn't leave her side for 3 days straight. I remembered her high school graduation. She'd hugged me so tight I could barely breathe and whispered, "I wouldn't be here without you, Grandpa. I love you more than anything." I wanted to believe that girl was still in there somewhere. But the voice I'd heard in the hallway wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to a stranger wearing her face. So when she said it at breakfast, when she looked me dead in the eye and told me my death would be the best birthday gift, I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I didn't even argue. I just nodded slowly and said, "Okay." Her face flickered with confusion for half a second. She'd expected a fight, maybe tears. Old men are supposed to break down when their families discard them, right? We're supposed to beg for love like dogs begging for scraps. But I didn't give her that. I stood up, rinsed my coffee cup in the sink, and walked out of the kitchen without another word. She called after me, voice dripping with fake concern. "Grandpa, I didn't mean it like that. Don't be dramatic." I kept walking. Dramatic. That's what I was being. Not her. Not the girl who wished me dead so she could cash out on the home I built with my own hands 40 years ago. The house where I carried my wife across the threshold. Where we painted the nursery yellow because we didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl. Where I held my daughter for the first time and promised her I'd always protect her. And then later where I made that same promise to Eliza when her mother abandoned her on my doorstep with a suitcase and a note that said, "I can't do this anymore." I kept every promise I made in this house. Every single one. But Eliza didn't care about promises. She cared about market value. I went to my office and closed the door. The room still smelled like the leather chair my wife bought me for our 30th anniversary. She'd been gone 6 years now. Heart attack, quick and clean, the doctors said. Like that made it hurt less. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. First I called my lawyer, Morton Hayes. We'd gone to high school together a lifetime ago. He answered on the second ring. "William, you old bastard. What's going on?" I need to make some changes, Mort, big ones. There was a pause. Morton had been my friend long enough to hear the weight in my voice. You okay? No, I said. But I will be. I spent the next 4 hours on the phone. First with Morton, then with the bank, then with my financial advisor, then with the real estate attorney I'd used when I bought my late wife's parents' property up north. By the time the sun started sinking toward the horizon, everything was in motion. I canceled the funding on the house. It wasn't in Eliza's name. Never had been. She just assumed it would be hers one day because I'd never corrected her. The mortgage was paid off decades ago, but I'd taken out a line of credit against it 2 years back to help fund Eliza's graduate school. She dropped out after 1 semester to move in with a guy she met at a music festival. The guy was long gone. The debt wasn't. I called the credit line, closed it. Then I liquidated my savings, my retirement accounts, everything. It took some maneuvering and I'd pay penalties on some of it, but I didn't care. Money's only useful if you're alive to spend it, and according to my granddaughter, my death was the best gift I could give. So I'd give her that. Sort of. I wasn't actually going to die. But William, the man who raised her, sacrificed for her, loved her unconditionally, he was gone. That version of me ended the moment she said those words over breakfast. What would you have done if someone you love said that to you? Think about it. Really think about it. Because what I did next made sure Eliza would remember this birthday for the rest of her life. I wrote the letter that night. 4 pages. Handwritten. I didn't type it because I wanted her to see my hand trembling on some of the lines. I wanted her to feel the weight of the ink pressed into the paper. I didn't insult her, didn't call her names. I just told her the truth about the sacrifices. The late nights working double shifts so she could have dance lessons. The promotions I turned down because they required travel, and I wouldn't leave her alone. The inheritance from my wife that I spent on her college fund instead of the trip to Ireland we'd always planned. I told her about the moment I heard her on the phone with Marcus. I described it in detail. What the moon looked like through my window. How my chest felt tight and small. How I realized the girl I loved was gone, and I didn't know when I'd lost her. And then I told her what I'd done. The house was no longer hers. I'd signed it over in a trust that she couldn't touch. The money was gone, donated to charities that actually gave a damn about people. The college fund I'd been saving for her future children? Gone. All of it. Every cent I had in the world went somewhere she couldn't reach. Except for one thing. I left her exactly $1, taped to the last page of the letter, with a note underneath it, "For your birthday, the only gift I have left to give." I sealed the letter in an envelope and left it on her bedroom desk while she was out with Marcus doing whatever it is people do when they're waiting for someone to die. Then I packed a bag, 1 suitcase, some clothes, my wife's photo, the watch my father gave me when I turned 18. I didn't need much. I'd already arranged the cabin up north, the one my wife and I used to visit every summer. It was mine, paid for, off-grid. No one knew about it except Morton, and he wasn't going to tell. I left the house at dawn. The sun was just starting to bleed pink into the sky. I didn't look back, not even once. Because the man who lived in that house, the man who loved Eliza unconditionally, was dead. She'd killed him with a single sentence over breakfast, and what I left on her table would make sure she knew exactly what she'd done. I wonder if she felt powerful when she said it, if she thought I'd just roll over and take it. Old people do that, right? They accept the cruelty because they're too tired to fight back. But she forgot one thing. I'm not just old. I'm the man who built a life from nothing, who survived wars, losses, betrayals, and heartbreaks she couldn't even imagine. And if she wanted me gone, fine, I'd disappear. But not the way she expected. Not in a way that made her life easier. I'd vanish in a way that made sure every time she walked through that house, every time she saw my empty chair or the photos on the wall, she'd feel the weight of what she destroyed. 7 days. That's all she had until her birthday party. 7 days until she walked into her room and found that letter waiting. 7 days until she realized that sometimes the worst thing that can happen isn't someone dying. It's someone choosing to walk away and taking everything you assumed was yours with them. I've done a lot of things in my 74 years. Some I'm proud of. Some I regret. But driving away from that house, watching it shrink in the rearview mirror until it was nothing but a memory, that's the one thing I know I'll never regret. Because she taught me something in that moment over breakfast. She taught me that love, real love, can't survive in a heart that only sees you as an obstacle. And I was done being an obstacle in my own life. So I disappeared. And what I left behind would haunt her longer than any ghost ever could. The cabin smelled like pine and decades of memory. I stood in the doorway with my single suitcase, breathing in air that hadn't been disturbed in almost 2 years. Dust particles floated through the afternoon light slanting through the windows, dancing like they were celebrating my arrival. This place had always been our escape, mine and Eleanor's. My wife had loved it here more than anywhere else on earth. She used to sit on that porch with her morning coffee and say the silence here was so pure, you could hear your own soul thinking. I set my bag down and walked through rooms that still held her presence. The kitchen where she'd burned pancakes every Sunday morning and laughed about it. The bedroom where we'd lie awake talking about everything and nothing until the stars faded. The living room where she'd read while I pretended to fish but really just watched her exist in a world that felt peaceful. She'd been gone 6 years, but sometimes the missing felt so fresh I could taste it. What would Eleanor think of what I'd done? Would she call me cruel? Or would she understand that sometimes love has to protect itself, even if the protection looks like abandonment? I didn't have answers. I just had the quiet. And for the first time in months, my chest didn't feel like it was collapsing inward. Back in the city, Eliza would be coming home soon. Maybe she'd notice I wasn't there. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe Marcus would be with her, already measuring the living room for his weights and protein powder empire, or whatever the hell he planned to do with my house. The thought should have made me angry. Instead, I felt nothing, just a vast echoing emptiness where my love for her used to live. I unpacked slowly. Hung my 4 shirts in the closet next to Eleanor's old jacket that I couldn't bring myself to remove. Put my father's watch on the nightstand. Set Eleanor's photo on the dresser where the last light of day would hit it just right. Then I sat on the porch and watched the sun sink behind the mountains. The silence Eleanor loved so much wrapped around me like a blanket. No traffic, no phones buzzing, no voices telling me I'd be a great birthday gift if I just stopped breathing. Just whined through the trees and the distant call of something wild I couldn't name. I stayed there until the stars came out. If you're still with me, you won't believe what happens next. Drop a comment below with your country so I know you're here. The first 3 days passed like water. I woke with the sun, made coffee the way Eleanor taught me, strong enough to strip paint, walked the property line and remembered every tree we'd planted together, read books I'd been meaning to finish for years. At night, I sat by the fireplace and didn't think about anything at all. It was the kind of peace you only find after you've lost everything worth losing. On the 4th day, my phone rang. I'd kept it on for Morton in case the legal work hit snags. But the name on the screen wasn't Morton's, it was Eliza's. I stared at it, watched it buzz and light up and scream for my attention like a child having a tantrum. I didn't answer. It rang 4 more times that day, then 6 times the next day. Then it stopped ringing and the voicemail started. I didn't listen to them. Not at first. But on the 6th day, curiosity got the better of me. Or maybe it was something darker than curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that wanted to hear her panic, wanted proof that my absence created a hole she couldn't ignore. I'm not proud of that. But I'm being honest here. And honestly, I wanted her to hurt the way she'd hurt me. The first voicemail was almost funny. Her voice had that performative worry people use when they're not actually concerned, but think they should sound like they are. "Grandpa, where are you? I came home and you're not here. Your car's gone. Just call me back, okay?" I'm worried. No, she wasn't. The second voicemail had an edge to it. Okay, this isn't funny anymore. Where the hell are you? Marcus and I checked the hospitals. You're not there. If this is about what I said at breakfast, I was joking. You know I didn't mean it. Stop being dramatic and come home. Dramatic. There was that word again. The third voicemail was different. Her voice cracked in the middle, real fear starting to seep through the performance. Grandpa, please. I found the letter. I don't understand. What do you mean the house isn't mine? What do you mean you donated everything? This is insane. You can't just disappear. Call me back. Please. I played that one twice. Listen to the tremor in her voice. The moment she realized I hadn't just left for a few days, that I'd dismantled her entire future while she slept. Part of me felt vindicated. The other part felt sick. The fourth voicemail she left was pure rage. You selfish bastard. How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you? I took care of you. I stayed when I could have left. And this is how you repay me? By stealing my inheritance and disappearing like a coward? You're pathetic. I almost laughed at that one. Everything she'd done for me. Like existing in my house rent-free while I paid her car insurance and her phone bill and her credit cards was some kind of humanitarian service. Like I should be grateful she tolerated my presence in the home I built. But the fifth voicemail broke something inside me I didn't know was still intact. She was crying. Actually crying. Not the fake tears she used to use when she wanted something. Real, gasping, broken sobs that sounded like they were tearing her apart from the inside. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. Any of it. I was angry and stupid and I said something horrible, but I didn't. I didn't think you'd actually leave. Please come home, please. I can't do this without you. I don't know how to do this without you. Her voice dissolved into crying so hard she couldn't speak. The voicemail ended with just the sound of her falling apart. I sat there holding the phone, staring at Eleanor's photo on the dresser. What do I do? I whispered to her. She's sorry, she sounds really sorry. But Eleanor's frozen smile didn't answer. And the wind outside didn't offer advice. And the silence I'd been hiding in suddenly felt less like peace and more like cowardice. Do you think I was too forgiving here? Because I didn't call her back. Not that day, not the next. I told myself she was manipulating me. That the tears were just another performance. That if I went back, nothing would change. She'd learned she could wound me and I'd always come crawling back and the cycle would continue until I actually did die, and she got what she wanted anyway. But late at night when I couldn't sleep, I wondered if I was wrong. If maybe the cruelty she'd shown at breakfast was the performance and the broken girl sobbing into my voicemail was the real Eliza, the one I'd raised, the one who used to hold my hand at crosswalks even when she was too old for it, the one who made me birthday cards with glitter and misspelled words and so much tape they were impossible to open. I didn't know anymore. And not knowing felt worse than the betrayal. On the seventh day, the day of her birthday, I woke before dawn. Couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to that letter on her desk. 4 pages of truth she'd probably read a dozen times by now. $1 taped to the bottom. The cruelest gift I'd ever given anyone. I made coffee and sat on the porch in the dark, waiting for the sun. When it finally came, bleeding gold and orange across the mountain ridge, I made a decision. I pulled out my phone and called Morton. He answered groggily, Jesus, William, it's 6 in the morning. I need to know if she's tried to contact you. Silence for a moment, then a sigh. She's called my office 47 times. My secretary stopped counting after that. She's demanding to know where you are, threatening legal action, then crying, then threatening again. She's a mess, William. Good, I said. Then I felt horrible for saying it. Is it though? Morton asked quietly. Is it good? Because from where I'm sitting, you've got a kid who's scared and confused and probably learning a very hard lesson. But you're up in the mountains hiding like you're the one who got hurt. I did get hurt, I said. She told me to die, Mort. I know. and that was evil. But you raised her, man, which means part of who she is came from you. The good parts and the bad parts. And if she's capable of cruelty, maybe she's also capable of real remorse. Have you considered that? I hadn't. Or maybe I had and didn't want to admit it. What are you saying? I'm saying you've made your point. She knows what she lost, she's drowning in it, but if you stay gone forever, you don't win. You both just lose. I hung up without saying goodbye. Rude, but I couldn't hear anymore. Morton was right, and I hated him for it. I spent the rest of the day hiking the trails Eleanor and I used to walk. My knees screamed at me, but I didn't care. I needed to move, needed to think, needed to figure out if revenge was supposed to feel this hollow. By the time I got back to the cabin, the sun was setting again. Another day gone. Another day Eliza spent thinking I was never coming back. I stood in the kitchen, staring at my phone on the counter. It hadn't rung all day. No more voicemails. No more texts. Just silence. And somehow that was worse than the crying. What if she'd given up? What if I'd pushed too hard and broken something that couldn't be fixed? What if the last words we ever exchanged were her telling me to die and me leaving $1 on her desk like she was worth nothing more? The thought made my stomach turn. I picked up the phone, stared at her name in my contacts. My thumb hovered over the call button. But I didn't press it. Not yet. Because I needed to know something first. I needed to know if the girl crying in those voicemails was real, or just another version of the stranger who wanted me dead. And there was only one way to find out. I had to go back. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bed Eleanor and I used to share, staring at the ceiling beams we'd picked out together at a lumber yard 30 years ago, and I felt the weight of every decision I'd ever made pressing down on my chest like stones. The smart thing would be to stay here. Let Eliza sit with the consequences. Let her understand that words have power and cruelty has a cost. That's what the rational part of my brain kept saying on repeat. But the other part, the part that remembered braiding her hair before school and teaching her to ride a bike and holding her when she cried about boys who broke her heart, that part was screaming that I'd become exactly what I hated. Someone who abandoned the people they loved when things got hard, just like her mother. Just like her father. I got up at 4 a.m, made coffee I didn't drink, and started packing. Not everything, just enough. Because I wasn't sure yet if I was going back to stay or just to see what was left of the girl I'd raised. The drive took 6 hours. 6 hours of mountains flattening into hills, hills dissolving into suburbs, silence breaking into traffic noise and car horns and the suffocating buzz of a city that never stopped moving. I hated every mile of it. By the time I pulled onto my street, the sun was high and aggressive. The neighborhood looked exactly the same. Mrs. Patterson still had those ugly garden gnomes. The Kowalskis still hadn't fixed their mailbox. Everything frozen in time like I'd never left. Except I had left. And the man coming back wasn't the same one who'd driven away. I parked across the street from my house. Didn't pull into the driveway. I just sat there with the engine off, staring at the place I'd lived for 40 years like it was a stranger's home. The lawn needed mowing. Eliza had never been good about that. There were newspapers piled on the porch, yellowing in the sun. The curtains in the living room were drawn shut, making the house look closed off. Dead. I wondered if she was inside, if Marcus was with her, if they were planning their next move, or if she was alone, drowning in the reality of what she'd lost. Before I could decide whether to get out of the car, the front door opened. And there she was. Eliza stepped onto the porch in an oversized sweatshirt and pajama pants, her hair unwashed and pulled into a messy knot. Even from across the street, I could see the dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She was carrying a trash bag, walked it to the curb mechanically like her body was moving, but her brain was somewhere else entirely. When she turned to go back inside, she froze. She'd seen my car. For a long moment, neither of us moved. We just stared at each other across the distance of the street, the lawn, the week of silence that had carved a canyon between us. Then she dropped the trash bag, It hit the ground with a muffled thump and she ran. Not toward me. Away. Back into the house, slamming the door so hard I heard it from inside my car. My hands were shaking. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, trying to steady myself. She didn't want to see me. After all those voicemails, all that crying and begging, now that I was actually here, she ran. Maybe Morton was wrong. Maybe there was nothing left to salvage. I should have driven away right then. Should have turned the car around and gone back to the cabin and let the silence swallow both of us whole. But I didn't. I got out of the car, crossed the street, walked up the path I'd walked 10,000 times, and I knocked on my own door like a stranger asking for permission to enter. Nothing. I knocked again. Eliza, I know you're in there. Still nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. I'm not here to fight, I called through the door. I just want to talk. Her voice came from somewhere inside, muffled and sharp. Go away. I drove 6 hours to get here. I'm not leaving until we talk. I don't want to talk to you. The anger in her voice was real, but underneath it I heard something else, something that sounded like fear. I leaned my forehead against the door. The wood was warm from the sun. Please, Eliza, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Silence stretched so long I thought she'd gone deeper into the house where she couldn't hear me. Then I heard footsteps. The deadbolt clicked. The door opened just enough for me to see half her face. Her eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying recently, maybe right before I arrived. What do you want? She asked. Her voice was flat, emotionless, nothing like the broken sobs from the voicemails. To talk, I said. Can I come in? She laughed. Actually laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. Come in? To your house that isn't my house anymore. Sure, Grandpa. Come right in. She swung the door open wide and walked away, leaving me standing on the threshold. I stepped inside and the smell hit me first. Stale air, unwashed dishes, something rotting in the kitchen. The living room was a disaster. Magazines and mail scattered everywhere. Empty takeout containers on the coffee table. A blanket and pillow on the couch like she'd been sleeping there instead of in her room. This wasn't the home I'd left. This was the aftermath of something breaking. I closed the door behind me. Eliza was standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed, staring at me like I was an intruder. Well, she said. You wanted to talk, so talk. I didn't know where to start. How do you bridge a gap this wide with words? I got your voicemails, I said finally. Her jaw tightened. All of them. All of them. Then you heard me apologize. You heard me beg you to come back, and you still stayed gone. She said it like an accusation, like I was the one who'd done something unforgivable. You told me to die, Eliza. My voice came out quieter than I intended. You looked me in the eye and said the best gift I could give you was my death. I know what I said. She was shouting now. I know. And I've had a week to sit here alone thinking about it, hating myself for it, wishing I could take it back. But you didn't give me that chance. You just vanished like I meant nothing. You said I meant nothing, I shot back. You said I was a burden, that you were tired of pretending to care. I heard you on the phone with Marcus, Eliza. I heard every word. Her face went white. For a second, she looked like she might be sick. You heard that? Every word. I repeated. She sank into one of the kitchen chairs like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. Put her face in her hands. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't mean it. Which part? The part where you wanted me dead? Or the part where you were planning to sell my house before my body was cold? She flinched like I'd slapped her. Both, neither. I don't know. She looked up at me and her eyes were swimming with tears. I was angry, okay? You're always here, always watching, always making me feel like I'm not good enough, like I'm failing at being the person you want me to be. And Marcus kept saying I'd never be free until you were gone. And I said it. I said horrible things because I wanted to feel powerful for once instead of like a disappointment. The words hung in the air between us. I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down slowly. My knees cracked. I suddenly felt every one of my 74 years. You were never a disappointment, I said. Never. Not once. Then why do I always feel like I am? Her voice broke. Why do I feel like no matter what I do, it's not enough? Like I'm constantly being measured against some standard I can't reach? I didn't have an answer for that. Maybe I had been too hard on her. Maybe in trying to give her the structure and discipline her parents never did, I'd made her feel suffocated instead of loved. Maybe we'd both been failing each other in different ways for longer than either of us wanted to admit. Marcus is gone, she said suddenly. What? I kicked him out 3 days ago, after I read your letter, after I realized what I'd lost. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. He showed his true colors pretty quick when he found out there was no money. Called me stupid for not getting everything in writing. Said I was a naive idiot who deserved what I got. Then he left, and I haven't heard from him since. Good, I thought. But I didn't say it out loud. The house, she continued. The money. All of it. I get why you did it. I do. And I deserve it. But Grandpa... She looked at me with so much pain in her eyes I almost couldn't stand it. Did you have to make it hurt this much? Yes, I said simply. Because what you said hurt me more than anything I've ever felt. And I needed you to understand what that felt like. She nodded slowly, like she'd expected that answer. So what now? You came back just to watch me suffer? To make sure the lesson stuck? I don't know why I came back, I admitted. Part of me wants to forgive you. Part of me doesn't think I can. Part of me wonders if we're both too broken to fix this. She stood up suddenly, walked past me toward the hallway. I thought she was leaving, ending the conversation. But she came back a minute later holding something, the letter I'd left on her desk. She set it on the table between us. It was wrinkled and stained. She'd clearly read it more than once. You wrote that I killed the man who loved me, she said, pointing to a paragraph in the middle. That the grandfather I knew was dead and I'd never get him back. Did you mean that? I looked at the words I'd written in anger and grief. They felt true when I wrote them. They felt less true now, sitting across from this hollow-eyed girl who looked like she'd aged a decade in a week. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. Part of him died that morning. I know that much. She picked up the letter and did something I didn't expect. She tore it in half. Then in half again. Kept tearing until it was confetti on the kitchen table. Then let him stay dead, she said. Because I don't want him back. I stared at her, confused. She met my eyes and I saw something there I hadn't seen in years. Clarity. I don't want the grandfather who sacrificed everything and made me feel guilty for existing, she said. I don't want the version of you who kept score and reminded me of every dollar you spent raising me. I want the one who taught me to fish, who let me stay up late watching old movies even though I had school the next day, who told me stories about Grandma and made her feel alive even though she was gone. I want the person, not the martyr. Her words hit me like a fist to the chest. Because she was right. Somewhere along the way I'd turned love into a ledger. Every sacrifice became a debt she owed. Every act of care became a weapon I could use later to prove my worth. I'd stopped being her grandfather and started being her creditor. I don't know if I can be that person anymore, I whispered. Then we're both lost, she said. And for the first time since I walked through that door, I saw the real truth. We were both grieving. Her for the future she thought she had. Me for the girl I thought I'd raised. And maybe the only way forward was to bury who we'd been and figure out who we could become. If that was even possible. The torn pieces of my letter lay scattered across the kitchen table like snow that would never melt. Eliza and I sat in silence, the kind that feels heavy enough to crush bones. Outside, a car alarm went off somewhere down the street. Inside, we were two people who'd forgotten how to be family. She spoke first. Her voice was different now, steadier, like she'd made some kind of decision while we sat there not looking at each other. "Do you remember the summer I was 12?" she asked. "When we drove to that lake you and Grandma used to visit?" I remembered. We'd gone 2 months after Eleanor died. I was drowning in grief and Eliza was trying so hard to be good, to be easy, to not add to my pain. She'd been quiet the whole summer, tiptoeing around my sadness like it was made of glass. "You taught me to skip stones that day," she continued. "I couldn't get it right. Kept throwing them too hard or at the wrong angle. Must have tried 100 times. 147, I said. I counted. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Of course you did. And you never got frustrated. Never told me to give up. You just kept handing me stones and saying, 'One more try, kiddo. You're getting closer.'" I closed my eyes. I could see it perfectly. The late afternoon sun on the water. Her tongue sticking out in concentration the way it always did when she was focusing hard. The sound of stones plunking into the lake over and over. "And then I finally got one to skip," she said. 3 bounces. You acted like I'd won the Olympics. Picked me up and spun me around even though I was way too big for that. Made me feel like I'd done something impossible. "You had," I said. "You'd been trying for hours. Most kids would have quit. Most kids didn't have you as a grandfather." Her voice cracked. "That's the man I remember, Grandpa. Not the one who kept spreadsheets of what he spent on me. Not the one who left me $1 like I was a beggar. The one who celebrated me for skipping a stupid stone 3 times. The memory sat between us, golden and painful. When had I stopped being that person? When had love turned into resentment? When did I start counting costs instead of just giving freely? After Grandma died, I said slowly, "I think I got scared." "Of what?" "Of losing you too. Of not being enough. Your mother left you with me and disappeared. Your father sends a card on Christmas if he remembers. I was all you had. And I kept thinking that if I didn't do everything perfectly, if I didn't sacrifice enough, if I wasn't enough, you'd leave too. So I kept track, kept score, made sure you knew everything I'd given up, because then you'd feel obligated to stay. I'd never said it out loud before, never let myself see the truth that clearly, but there it was, ugly and raw and honest. "That's not love, Grandpa," Eliza said softly. "That's hostage-taking." I know. The admission felt like swallowing broken glass. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She reached across the table, hesitated, then put her hand over mine. Her fingers were cold. "I'm sorry too. For what I said. For how I treated you. For letting Marcus poison me against you. For being so selfish and cruel that I couldn't see what I had until it was gone." Her tears started again, but she didn't pull her hand away. "I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if you can forgive me or if I can forgive myself. But I want to try. If you'll let me." I looked at our hands, mine weathered and spotted with age, hers young and shaking, the same hands I used to hold when we crossed streets. When had we stopped holding hands? When had touch become so rare between us that this moment felt monumental? If you're still here watching, I need you to know something. I'm reading and replying to every comment under this post. Because stories like this, they're not just entertainment. They're mirrors. And maybe you see yourself in Eliza, or in me, or in the space between us where love and hurt got tangled up until we couldn't tell them apart. Drop a comment and tell me which part of this hit you hardest. I want to know I'm not alone in understanding how complicated family can be. "I brought something back with me," I said. "From the cabin." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Pulled up the account I'd created the day I left. The one Morton had helped me set up. The one I hadn't told her about. I turned the screen toward her. Her eyes went wide. What is this?" "Every penny I had," I said. "I told you I donated it all. I lied. Well, half lied. I donated some to charity. Real ones, not just to hurt you. But the rest? I put it in a trust. For you. For your future. For when you're ready. But the letter said a lot of things I meant in the moment. And some things I needed you to believe so you'd understand what loss felt like. I closed the app. Put the phone away. The house is still in a trust. You can't sell it. Can't leverage it. But you can live in it. We both can. If we can figure out how to do that without destroying each other. She was crying openly now. Big, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Why? Why would you do this? I don't deserve it. I told you to die. I wished you were gone. Because I raised you to believe love had conditions, I said. That you had to earn it. That it could be taken away if you failed. And that was wrong. That was my failure, not yours. So I'm showing you what unconditional actually means. It means I can be hurt. I can be angry. I can leave. But I can't stop being your grandfather. Can't stop wanting you to have a future. Even when you don't want me in it. She stood up suddenly and came around the table. Before I could react, she was hugging me, her arms wrapped around my shoulders, her face pressed against my neck the way she used to do when she was small, and the world felt too big. I'm so sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I love you. I'm so sorry. I held her, felt her shaking against me, felt my own tears finally coming after a week of holding them back. We stood there in that disaster of a kitchen, two broken people trying to find our way back to each other through the wreckage we'd created. It wasn't forgiveness yet, not completely. Forgiveness takes time, takes proof, takes rebuilding trust one small moment at a time, like learning to skip stones. But it was a start. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and wet. She looked young again, vulnerable, like the girl who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms. Can you stay? She asked. Not forever. Not yet. Just tonight. I thought about the cabin, the silence, the peace I'd found there. Part of me wanted to go back to it, to the simplicity of being alone where no one could hurt me. But that wasn't living. That was just existing. And Eleanor hadn't raised me to be a man who existed. She'd raised me to be a man who loved, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Tonight, I agreed. We'll figure out tomorrow when it comes. She nodded, wiped her face with her sleeve. I should clean up. This place is disgusting. I kind of fell apart after you left. I'll help, I said. We spent the next 2 hours putting the house back together, washing dishes, gathering trash, opening windows to let fresh air chase out the staleness. We didn't talk much, didn't need to. There was something healing in the simple act of working side by side, fixing something tangible when the intangible felt too complicated. By the time the sun started setting, the house looked almost normal again. Eliza ordered pizza because neither of us had the energy to cook. We ate it on the couch, watching some mindless show neither of us cared about, just existing in the same space without fighting. It felt strange, fragile, like we were both afraid to move too quickly and shatter whatever truce we'd built. Around 9 o'clock, she fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. I sat there, careful not to wake her, and watched the TV without seeing it. My phone buzzed. A text from Morton. Did you go back? Yeah, I typed with one hand. And? We talked, really talked. It's not fixed, but it's not broken beyond repair either. Good. Eleanor would be proud of you. I looked down at Eliza sleeping against me. Listened to her breathing, steady and deep. She looked peaceful for the first time since I'd arrived. I don't know about that, I texted back. But I'm trying. That's all any of us can do, old friend. That's all any of us can do. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would bring new complications. We'd have to establish boundaries, have harder conversations, figure out what our relationship looked like when it wasn't built on obligation and guilt. But tonight, for this moment, we were just a grandfather and his granddaughter, sitting together in a quiet house, trying to remember what family felt like when it wasn't a battlefield. The greatest gift she'd asked for was my death. What I'd given her instead was the death of who we used to be. The martyred grandfather and the ungrateful child. The keeper of debts and the prisoner of obligation. Those versions of us were gone. What would replace them I didn't know yet. Maybe something better. Maybe something more honest. Maybe just two imperfect people who loved each other badly but were willing to learn to love each other better. Around midnight, I carefully shifted Eliza off my shoulder and stood up. My back screamed in protest. I was too old to sleep on couches and have deep emotional reckonings in the same day. I covered her with the blanket she'd been using and turned off the TV. The house settled into nighttime quiet. I walked through the rooms, slowly, touching furniture Eleanor and I had picked out together. The bookshelf we'd built badly and laughed about. The dining table where we'd hosted Thanksgivings and birthdays and ordinary Tuesdays that felt extraordinary just because we were together. This house held so much history, so much love and loss and everything in between. I'd almost walked away from all of it. Almost let my hurt turn me into the kind of person who abandoned their family the way Eliza's parents had abandoned her. But I didn't. And she didn't let me. We'd both pulled each other back from the edge. I stopped in the hallway outside Eliza's bedroom. The door was open. I could see the desk where I'd left the letter, the chair where she must have sat reading it over and over, letting my words cut her deeper each time. I walked in and sat at that desk, pulled out a piece of paper, and I started writing again. Not a letter of hurt this time. A different kind of letter. Dear Eliza, I wrote. By the time you read this, I'll be in the guest room sleeping off the worst week of both our lives. I'm writing this because I'm better with words on paper than I am speaking them out loud. Your grandmother always said I expressed my feelings like I was filing taxes. All facts, no heart. So here's some heart. You asked me today if I could forgive you. I don't think forgiveness is something that happens all at once. I think it's something we choose every day even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So here's what I'm choosing. I choose to remember you at 12, trying to skip stones until your arm hurt. I choose to remember you at 7, making me birthday cards covered in glitter that I still have in a box in my closet. I choose to remember you at 16, crying over your first heartbreak while I sat on your bed feeling helpless but staying anyway. I choose to remember the good, even when the bad is screaming for attention. You're not perfect. Neither am I. We're just two people trying to figure out how to be family when nobody gave us a manual. But here's what I know. Love isn't about keeping score. It's not about sacrifices or debts or who owes whom. It's about showing up, making mistakes, hurting each other, and choosing to try again tomorrow. So let's try again. Not to go back to who we were, but to become who we could be. I'll be here when you wake up. We'll have breakfast. We'll talk. We'll take it one day at a time. That's all we can do. That's all we need to do. I love you, kiddo. Even when I don't like you. Even when you don't like me. That's what unconditional means. Your grandpa. I folded the letter and left it on her desk, right where the first one had been. A replacement. A promise. A beginning. Then I went to the guest room, lay down on a bed that smelled faintly of lavender detergent, and closed my eyes. Sleep came easier than it had in days. Because for the first time since that terrible morning at the breakfast table, I wasn't running from pain. I was walking toward healing. And maybe that was the real gift. Not death, not money, not even forgiveness. Just the willingness to stay and do the hard work of loving someone imperfectly but honestly. The birthday party never happened. Marcus was gone. The friends who were supposed to come had been uninvited. It was just going to be the two of us now, figuring out what came next. But maybe that was better. Maybe the best gift I could give her wasn't my absence or my presence. It was the truth. The messy, complicated, painful truth that family isn't easy and love isn't simple, and sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we can't stop caring about. And maybe the best gift she could give me was the same thing. The willingness to be honest, to admit when she was wrong, to try harder, to show up. I woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Thought Eleanor was in the kitchen, burning pancakes and humming off-key to whatever song was stuck in her head. But when I opened my eyes, I was in the guest room, and the coffee smell was real. I got up slowly, joints protesting, and walked to the kitchen. Eliza was standing at the counter, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. She'd showered, changed clothes. Her hair was wet and pulled back. She looked more like herself. "Morning," she said without turning around. I made it strong, like you taught me. I took the mug she offered. The coffee was perfect. "You read the letter?" I asked. She nodded. "Thank you. For that. For staying. For not giving up on me even when you should have." "I told you," I said. "I don't know how to give up on you. Apparently not even when I try." She smiled. A real smile. Small, but genuine. "So what now?" "Now we have breakfast," I said. "And then we figure out the rest. Together." She pulled eggs out of the fridge. Bread, butter, started cooking like she'd done it 1,000 times. Which she had. I'd taught her. All those mornings when she was young and it was just the 2 of us against the world. We'd lost our way, but maybe we could find it again. One breakfast at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice to stay instead of run. The house was quiet except for the sound of eggs sizzling in the pan and coffee being sipped, and 2 people breathing the same air without anger poisoning it. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And sometimes, a start is all you need. Before I end this, I want you to understand something. Family is complicated. People we love will hurt us. We'll hurt them back. And forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about deciding that the relationship is worth more than the pain. I don't know what happens next for Eliza and me. Maybe we'll rebuild something beautiful. Maybe we'll struggle for years. Maybe some hurts are too deep to ever fully heal. But we're trying. And in a world where it's easier to walk away, trying is everything. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever had to choose between holding a grudge and holding on to someone you love, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because we're all just trying to figure out this impossible thing called family. And none of us have to do it alone. Subscribe to this channel because the stories I share aren't just about other people. They're about all of us. About the hard choices we make. About the relationships we break and the ones we fight to save. About being human in a world that doesn't always make it easy. The greatest gift my granddaughter asked for was my death. What I gave her instead was a second chance, for both of us. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best gift we can give the people we love isn't what they ask for. It's what they actually need. Even when they don't know it yet, even when we don't either, we're still figuring it out. But we're figuring it out together. And that makes all the difference.